Hello, Legacy Savers. So today we're going to talk about the for loop. It is the second kind of iteration structure that we're going to talk about. So we've already talked about while loops. Remember that while loop, it continued until we found that that's condition that it continually checked was false. But sometimes we know how many times a loop will need to run. Like sometimes maybe we know that this loop has to run 5 times because we're going to ask the user for 5 different numbers. So introducing the for loop. A for loop is just an iteration structure. It's a programming construct that allows you to execute code a predetermined number of times. We have a number on it. We know it has to start it has to run 10 times. Maybe we know that we are going to get 10 numbers in. This is when we know how many times. The while loop, unfortunately, we didn't know how many times it could run. That is why we have a different loop. General form of a for loop looks like this. It is for counter in range, and you know what? That F needs to be lowercase. Now I just look at it, just saw it there. Let's fix that here quick. Lowercase f right there, okay. For counter in range, and we have the hashtag colon statements. Counter is a variable, so this is going to be a variable for us that's being made constantly. That guy is going to be the guy that's going to control what's happening. It's initialized to 0 to start. And then the number is how many times I want the loop to run. So whatever number I put in here, ultimately it'll run that many number of times. Counter is automatically increased by 1 after each iteration of the loop, aka the statements are ran. So here's my example of my first for loop. So I say for counter in range. So what's happening here is I got this counter right here. This is my variable. And I am making note that I want this loop to run 4 times. So what's going to happen is I'm going to print hello 4 times. Counter's variables though, so counter, what his values are going to be is going to start. That's a really bad color for this background. Let me see. Let's do dark red. Will that be better? Yeah, a little bit better. What about bright blue? That'll be better. So counter started at 0, right? We're going to print 1 hello. Then we're going to increase by 1. Hello. Okay. We're going to increase by 1 because remember, it increases by 1 every time. I'm going to print another hello. Notice this is the third print of hello. I'm going to get a 3. And we're going to print hello one more time. Since I am now going up to 4, I will stop my loop because I have ran 4 times. Notice the loop will run 4 times and print 0, 1, and 2, and 3 because I put my variable. So there's my variable, remember. That's counting up, starting at 0. And it's going to print 0, 1, 2, and 3 because that's the number I'm actually printing that variable. The variable counter will have the value of 3 at the end. It's not going to be the value of 4. It ultimately will stop before it adds that 4. So counter will end with a value of 3. Sometimes, though, maybe you don't want to start counting at 0. Maybe you want to start counting at 5. I don't know. So we have the ability to start my counting at a specific number. So basically, same for loop. Another little f right there. For counter in range, we're going to have a start value and an end value. Now, ultimately, to figure out how many times this thing will count, we're going to go end minus start. And that's going to tell us how many times this loop actually will run. So I have an example here. I have another for my counter. So again, this is my variable right here. It's counting for us. In range 4, 10. So what's going to happen is counter's variable is going to start at 4 and it's going to go until it gets to the number right before 10. So ultimately, this loop will run 6 times because 10 minus 4. Reason for that, when counter is 4, we're going to print 1 hello, right? We're going to add 1. Now we're going to print another hello. We're going to add 1. We're going to print another hello. We're going to add one. I'm running out of room. We're going to print one more hello. I'm going to add one again, print another hello. I'm going to add one again, print another hello. And now since we've gotten a 9, can't go up to 10 because that's our stop value. So again, notice we're printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hellos on this loop because 10 minus 4 is how we ultimately can get that really quickly. And maybe sometimes you want to add more than one each time as well. Maybe you're skip counting. Maybe you're starting at a value and maybe you're starting at 1 and you want to go to 10 but only do the even numbers. Or maybe you just want to add 2 every time. So we can actually put 3 things inside of this parentheses. We have our start value. Where do you want to start counting? We have what's your end value. And then we have this skip or step counter. The step counter is how much do you want to add by, or in this case, you could also do subtraction if you put a negative in there. You could also start at a bigger number and end at a smaller number. You just need to make sure your step is a negative. So let's take a look at that. So this guy, I have 4, 10, 2. So notice what's happening is I'm starting at 4, going up to 10, but not including 10. And I'm going to start counting. I'm going to count by 2s. Okay, so I'm starting at 4. That's what's going to print because it's printing counter, my variable right here. So I'm going to start counting at 4. I'm going to go up by 2. I probably should make track here. Say counter started at 4. I'm going to go up by 2. So I'm going to add a 2 and get 6. I'm going to print 6 because I'm printing my counter. And then I'm going to add 2 again because that's my step mount. I'm at 8, so I'm going to print an 8. And then notice if I added 2, I would get to 10. Thus, I'm not going to add. We've added only 3 times. Now you're thinking, well, Marsh, last back here, you were like, well, we could just do 10 minus 4. How can you figure out that 3 times that fast? Ultimately, it's the same thing. You're just dividing by your step counter. So what you'll do is you'll do end minus begin, and you'll divide by your step. That tells you how many times this loop actually will run with a quick number.